The sun beats down on 17 miles of fractured limestone and white dust. A man lies naked on the shoulder of the road, simply refusing to be inconvenienced by a dying man on the side of the highway. And it does carry that weight sometimes. He is risking his life. But the Samaritan pulls back on the leather reins. He stops the animal. He does not calculate his purity. He does not press his back against the limestone wall to create distance. He steps off the beast. He walks directly toward the broken body. He kneels down in the white dust, letting his own garments soak up the dark, pooling blood. This is not a simple act of charity. It is a rebellion against centuries of hatred. A priest walked away to stay pure. A Levite walked away to stay safe. An enemy walks forward. He looks down at the bruised, swollen face of a man who, on any other day, would refuse to drink from the same well as him. He listens to the ragged breathing, and then something happens inside the chest of this hated foreigner. It is a reaction Jesus describes using a Greek word so intense, so physically violent, that most English translations completely fail to capture its weight. Look at Luke chapter 10, verse 33. Our English Bibles say that when the Samaritan saw the wounded Jewish man, he took pity on him or had compassion. It sounds polite. It sounds like a fleeting emotional response, a momentary tug at the heartstrings before a moral decision is made. But the word Jesus uses is the Greek splanchnisomai. It is not a polite word. It is a medical, anatomical term. But if you look closer at the geography of this specific road, at the strict rules of the first century temple, the root of this verb is the noun splanchna, which literally translates to the bowels, the intestines, the internal organs. In the ancient Greco-Roman world, the heart was not considered the center of deep emotion. The gut was. When you experienced profound grief, when you faced unimaginable terror, or when you witnessed agonizing suffering, they believed the physical epicenter of that emotion was located in your visceral organs. To experience splanchnisomai is to have your stomach drop. It is to feel a sharp, physical twisting in your intestines. It is the feeling a parent gets when they watch their child fall toward the pavement. It appears 12 times in the New Testament Gospels. And apart from 3 parables, it is used exclusively to describe one person, Jesus. When Jesus sees the harassed crowds wandering like sheep without a shepherd in Matthew chapter 9, he experiences splanchnisomai. When he looks at the grieving widow of Nain walking behind the coffin of her only son in Luke chapter 7, his gut is torn open by the exact same word. It is the signature emotion of the divine, the visceral empathy of God moving toward human suffering. And here, Jesus takes the divine signature and assigns it to a hated heretic. At the exact direction the priest is walking, you start to see something the standard reading completely misses. The priest felt a theological calculation. The Levite felt a self-preserving fear. But the Samaritan experiences a physical rupture in his own chest. True compassion is not a fleeting sentiment. It is a physical displacement. When he looks at the torn flesh of his cultural enemy, the Samaritan does not see a Jewish man. He does not see a theological problem. He sees his own humanity bleeding out into the white dirt. And his own body reacts as if he is the one dying. The law of the priest built a wall of safety. The gut of the Samaritan tore that wall completely down. But he does not just stand on the road and feel the pain of a stranger. What he does next, and specifically what he pulls out of his money belt at the end of the journey, reveals exactly how far he is willing to go for a man who would likely never do the same for him. He kneels in the white dirt. He opens his travel flasks. Oil and wine pour into the open wounds. The alcohol cleanses the torn flesh. The oil soothes the brutalized skin. He tears his own linen garments into strips. He binds the man's injuries with his own bare hands. He is not in a hurry. He is terrified. The real question of this parable isn't, are you willing to stop? It is this. He lifts the unconscious, bleeding weight onto his own animal. He takes the leather reins. He walks the rest of the way on foot. The Samaritan becomes the servant. The hated foreigner becomes the protector. They arrive at an inn on the edge of the wilderness. The oppressive heat of the ravine finally breaks. The smell of stale wine and wood smoke fills the dimly lit room. He does not drop the wounded man at the door. He does not hand him over to the innkeeper and rush back to his own schedule. He carries him inside. He stays the entire night. He sits in the dark and watches the shallow breathing of his cultural enemy. When the sun rises, he reaches into his leather pouch. He pulls out 2 silver denarii. The sharp clink of the coins echoes against the wooden table. He slides them toward the innkeeper. 2 denarii is a massive sum. It is 2 full days of wages for a common laborer. In a first-century roadside inn, it is enough to cover a man's room and board for up to 2 months. But the silver is not the most radical part of the transaction. It is the promise he makes next. Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back. He sets no limit. What are you willing to touch that might cost you your standing? Jesus was not offering a morality tale about being a helpful neighbor. He asks for no receipt. He caps no liability. First-century inns along the Jericho Road are notoriously dangerous. They are often run by cutthroats, opportunists, and thieves, leaving a vulnerable, penniless man in one of these establishments is a massive risk. If the injured man cannot pay his eventual bill, the innkeeper will throw him out into the street or sell him into slavery to recoup the lost revenue. The Samaritan knows this perfectly well, so he binds himself to the broken man's future. This is not a random act of roadside charity. It is a complete assumption of debt. The priest calculated what it would cost to stop and protect his own standing. The Samaritan calculated what it would cost to save, and then he paid it himself. He absorbs the total financial and social burden of a man who, until yesterday, would have spat at his feet. The story Jesus tells ends there, leaving a profound challenge hanging in the air for the silent Jewish lawyer. But this ancient transaction on a dusty road is not just a history lesson about how to be a good neighbor. It is pointing directly at a disease we are still carrying today. We do not carry the ashes of a red heifer. We do not track our 24-course rotations in a physical temple. He was diagnosing something. He was naming a disease that most of the religious leaders in his crowd did not even realize they had. But we are a species deeply infected by the exact same disease that walked down the Wadi Kelt. We have simply traded ancient Levitical codes for modern social ones. We still operate on a strict system of contamination. We watch a life collapse, a public failure, a messy divorce, a financial ruin, a theological deconstruction. We see the wreckage laid out on the shoulder of our daily lives. We feel the cold silence of a ruined reputation. We hear the sharp whisper of rumors echoing in the sterile glare of our screens. And immediately, we calculate the cost of association. If we step into their mess, their dirt might rub off on our pristine standing. If we sit in the dirt with the outcast, the crowd holding the stones might turn and take aim at us. So we shift our weight. We pull our curated lives tight against our chests. We cross to the furthest edge of the room, the farthest side of the conversation, pressing our backs against our own invisible limestone walls to create as much distance as possible. We do not call it ritual purity anymore. We call it protecting our peace. We call it maintaining healthy boundaries. We call it guarding our witness. We dress our avoidance in the language of spiritual wisdom. He was exposing the exact moment when our obsession with being clean actually makes us complicit in death. The answer changes how you read. We build entire religious cultures around the idea that godliness means staying away from anything that bleeds. This is not a strategy for holiness. It is the preservation of status. Our obsession with remaining clean makes us entirely useless to a bleeding world. We measure our faithfulness by the controversies we manage to avoid, unaware that the God we claim to serve is currently kneeling in the white dust with a despised foreigner, getting the blood of the broken all over his hands. The lawyer in the crowd that day asked a technical, legal question. Who is my neighbor? He wanted a boundary line. He wanted a clear checklist of who he was obligated to help and who he was permitted to ignore. But the answer Jesus handed back dismantled his entire theological universe. A priest saw the pooling blood and crossed to the furthest limestone wall. A Levite calculated the risk of defilement and chose the safety of the law. A lawyer asked for a comfortable boundary and received a shattered worldview. A foreigner walked into hostile territory and became the hero of the kingdom. His gut twisted at the sight, the most famous parable in the New Testament. To feel the weight of this story, you have to step back onto that limestone road of his enemy, and the hatred of centuries collapsed. He poured out his own oil and wine and assumed a massive debt he did not owe. A dying man was abandoned by his own religious elite and was carried to safety by a living curse. One road, one radical inversion. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the direction the priest was walking. He was not rushing up the mountain to the temple. He was walking down. His holy shift was over. He had nothing left to lose but his own convenience, his own comfort, his own pristine isolation, and he still pressed his back against the rock to avoid the broken body. If you are in a season where you have been beaten down and left on the shoulder of the road, and the people who were supposed to represent God walked right past you, you need to hear this. Their avoidance was not a reflection of your worth. It was a reflection of their fear. Jesus did not tell this story to give you a time management lesson. He told it to show you that heaven's compassion does not calculate the cost. Heaven does not pass by. Because the most damning detail about this priest is not where he is heading. It is where he just came from, on the other side. If this opens something in you, subscribe. Leave a comment. Even one word helps. Share this with someone who has been hurt by religion and needs to see the true face of grace. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. And may the God who has never once hesitated to touch the unclean kneel in the dust of your deepest wounds, bind them with his own hands, and carry you safely all the way home. We project our modern lives onto ancient stories. We live in a world of traffic jams. We live in a world of missed flights, his breath shallow, his blood soaking into the dirt. The road from Jerusalem to Jericho drops exactly 3,400 feet through the Judean wilderness. We live in a world of back-to-back meetings. We measure our worth by our productivity and our virtue by our punctuality. So, when we hear a story about a man walking past a crisis, our minds immediately jump to the most familiar excuse: busyness. We assume the priest is simply stressed. We picture him mentally rehearsing a sermon. We imagine him thinking, "I would love to help, but I have a service to lead." We reduce this profound, subversive parable to a simple time management seminar. We tell our congregations to stop rushing past the broken people in their path. We make the priest a symbol of the modern workaholic, a man too focused on his destination to see the journey. We tell ourselves that the enemy of compassion is an overcrowded calendar. This is not a story about margin. It is a story about purity. Jesus is not talking to a crowd of modern corporate executives. He is talking to a first-century Jewish lawyer. The lawyer knows the Torah. The lawyer knows the Levitical codes backward and forward. The lawyer knows exactly what is running through the priest's mind on that limestone highway. The Levitical code is entirely unforgiving. Numbers chapter 19 lays it out in black and white. If you touch a human corpse, you are ritually unclean. You are cut off for 7 days. You must undergo a complex purification ritual. It is a gauntlet of switchbacks and sudden shadows. It is steep. It is narrow. It is flanked by jagged caves that make perfect hiding places for thieves. You must be sprinkled with water mixed with the ashes of a red heifer on the 3rd day and the 7th day. Until that is complete, you cannot enter the temple. You cannot perform your sacred duties. You cannot eat from the holy tithes that feed your family. For a first-century priest, ritual purity is not just a private spiritual state. It is his livelihood. It is his public identity. It is his entire world. Now, look at the man on the ground. Luke tells us the robbers stripped him. They beat him. They left him half dead, from 10 feet away. He looks indistinguishable from a corpse. There is no visible rise and fall of the chest. There is only torn skin, pooled blood, and silence. If the priest reaches down to touch him, to check for a pulse, and the man happens to be dead, the priest is instantly defiled. His holy status evaporates. He is contaminated. He becomes a religious outcast for a week. So he calculates the risk. He weighs a stranger's blood against his own pristine standing. He chooses to keep his hands clean. He chooses the safety of the law over the messiness of life. But there is a geographic detail in Jesus' opening setup that makes this calculation infinitely worse, earning it a dark reputation among the first-century locals as the way of blood. Every traveler knows the risk. It is a detail every local in that first-century crowd would have caught instantly. A detail that turns this from a story of tragic caution into a story of absolute hypocrisy. We naturally assume the priest is rushing up the mountain. We assume he is heading toward Jerusalem, desperately trying not to be late for his holy shift at the temple. But Jesus gives us one directional word that shatters that defense completely. Jesus sets the scene with a single geographical reality. A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. And in the very next breath, Jesus adds the detail about the priest. He is going down that same road. Jerusalem sits on a ridge, 2,500 feet above sea level. The road follows the Wadi Kelt, a deep, winding ravine cutting through the barren Judean hills. You do not just travel to Jericho. You descend. You brace your legs against the steep decline, kicking up white dust that coats your sandals, leaving the cool mountain air of the holy city for the suffocating, trapped heat of the desert floor. This priest is walking down. He is walking away from the temple. He has just finished his rotation. The smell of burning fat and frankincense is likely still clinging to his garments. According to the first-century system, priests are divided into 24 courses. You can hear the dry crunch of leather sandals in the distance. Someone is coming. A priest is walking this same brutal descent. Each group serves at the great altar for a predetermined period, tending the massive bronze basin, managing the daily sacrifices, maintaining the absolute purity required for the presence of God before finally returning to their homes. Jericho is a known priestly city, a lush oasis where the religious elite maintain their estates. This man is off duty. His shift is over. He has no sacrifices to offer tomorrow. He has no incense to burn. He has no immediate holy obligations that would be ruined by ritual impurity. If he touches a corpse on this road, he has weeks, perhaps months, to complete the mandatory purification rituals in the comfort of his own estate before he is ever called back to the Holy Mount. Touching the bleeding man will not cost him his job. It will only cost him his comfort. He is not protecting his sacred duty. He is protecting his convenience. This makes the priest's calculation entirely different. He looks at the broken body bleeding out onto the limestone rock. He sees the flies gathering around the torn flesh. He feels the oppressive heat pressing against his shoulders. He knows that helping this stranger means getting blood on his own hands, loading a dead weight onto his own animal, and paying for the man's care out of his own pocket. It means undergoing a 7-day quarantine just in case the man stops breathing. It is too much friction. So he makes a choice that Jesus describes. He rounds a blind corner and sees the broken man. He sees the bruised flesh, the unmoving chest, the dark liquid pooling on the white rock, with one highly specific, compound Greek verb. It is a word that appears only twice in the entire New Testament, both times in this exact story. And when you break this word apart, you realize the priest didn't just ignore the dying man. He performed a calculated, physical maneuver. Look at Luke chapter 10, verse 30n. Jesus describes the exact physical movement of the priest. Most English Bibles translate this simply. They say the priest passed by on the other side. It sounds almost casual. It sounds like he just kept walking in his own lane. It paints a picture of a man staring straight ahead, perhaps distracted, simply failing to notice the tragedy happening on the shoulder of the highway. But the word Jesus uses is the Greek antiparelthen. It is a massive, 3-part compound verb. It combines anti meaning opposite, para meaning alongside, and erchomai meaning to go or to pass. It appears exactly twice in the entire New Testament, once for the priest in verse 31, once for the Levite, who does the exact same thing in verse 32. The word does not mean to passively miss something. It means to actively cross over to the furthest possible opposite edge. The road to Jericho is not a modern highway with wide lanes and guardrails. It is a narrow dirt path carved into the side of a gorge, and he steps to the other side. Most people read this story and assume they know exactly what is happening here. It is tight. It is claustrophobic. The smell of iron and sweat hangs in the trapped heat of the ravine. To pass by on the other side requires effort. It requires a deliberate physical detour. The priest sees the blood. He calculates the contamination. He shifts his weight. He pulls his robes tight against his chest. He physically presses his back against the jagged limestone wall on the far side of the path, creating as much physical distance as the narrow road will allow. He is not just walking past. He is recoiling. If the linguistic precision of these ancient texts is stirring up questions you've never considered, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So the priest vanishes down the mountain. The Levite follows shortly after. He performs the exact same maneuver, pressing his own robes against the exact same rock wall, choosing distance over defilement. That Greek root changes everything about how we view this parable. Their sin was not a lack of attention. It was a surplus of religion. They did not fail to see the broken man. They saw him perfectly, measured him against their theological checklist, and deemed him a liability. The Levitical law was originally designed to teach Israel how to host the presence of a holy God. We hear this parable in Sunday school, and we frame it as a straightforward lesson about being too busy. It was meant to be a framework for life. But the priest and the Levite weaponized it. They took a law meant to preserve holiness and used it as a shield to ignore human suffering. Their theology is not a bridge to the broken. It is a barrier against them. They chose a dead system of purity over a dying man on the pavement. But Jesus is not finished exposing the religious elite. He is about to introduce a third traveler to this blood-stained road. And the man who steps around the corner. Next is someone the Jewish lawyer listening to this story was taught to hate from the moment he could speak. The white dust settles on the limestone. The shadows in the Wadi Kelt grow longer, stretching like dark fingers across the path. The man on the ground is running out of time. His breathing slows. The midday heat presses down on his torn flesh. Then comes a third set of footsteps. The rhythmic click of a donkey's hooves echoes against the ravine walls. Another traveler rounds the blind corner. If you are the Jewish lawyer listening to Jesus tell this story, you know exactly how narrative structure works. A priest fails. A Levite fails. The third man is supposed to be the hero. The third man is supposed to be the ordinary Israelite layman. We assume the priest is just late for an important meeting. We think he is apathetic, wrapped up in his own religious schedule. It is a classic rhetorical setup to critique the religious elite and champion the common man. But the word that comes out of Jesus' mouth next is a shock to the system. A Samaritan. The lawyer's stomach drops. The crowd goes dead silent. You cannot overstate the absolute. Visceral hatred between Jews and Samaritans in the first century. They are not neighbors with a minor disagreement. They are blood enemies, divided by centuries of religious and racial trauma. They share no temple. They share no table. They share no greeting. When a Judean needs to travel north to Galilee, he will add days to his journey, crossing the Jordan River, walking through the blistering heat of the eastern desert, simply to avoid letting his sandals touch Samaritan soil. To the crowd listening to Jesus, a Samaritan is a half-breed, a heretic, a living curse, and the man bleeding out on the dirt is Jewish. History demands that the Samaritan walk away. Tradition demands that he let the Judean die. He is in hostile territory. If this Samaritan is caught standing over a bleeding Jewish man on the road to Jericho, the local authorities will not assume he is a helper. They will assume he is the attacker. He will be dragged into the city and stoned. He is not just risking his schedule,